Hi, my name's Ashley, and today's video is going to be on the history of Israel and Palestine, as well as the 7 world empires. So stick with me to hear what I have to say. All right, guys, I'm going to pretty much vomit all over you if you're not familiar with the end times, but stick with me. You can press pause, you can go to the Bible, you can go to Google Maps, do whatever you need to do to try to make sense of everything I have to say. I am not a history buff, so I'm warning you, there may be some dates, some terminology that I have off, but as of now, this is how I see the history of Israel as well as Palestine with the 7 world empires. So, first of all, 7 world empires, what is this? If you studied the book of Revelation, you have noticed that there is a beast that has 7 heads and 10 horns. These 7 heads, from my perspective, are going to be 7 world empires. This is really important because these 7 world empires were ruling over Israel, or will be ruling over. Technically, we've only had 6 of these empires, and the 7th one is going to be brewing at the end of the age. So with that said, here we go. I'm going to eventually get to Palestine, maybe in 5 minutes, but I want to go all the way back to the book of Genesis to make sense of everything. I believe this will all become a full circle for you as you digest this information. All right, so Israel. How did Israel even become a nation? It starts with a man named Abraham back in the book of Genesis. God promises this man Abraham a great nation. Again, this is Israel. Before Abraham's descendants inherit this land, the Israelites were in Egypt. That is our first world empire. You're going to see all 7 of them right here. But that first world empire is going to be Egypt. Now, eventually, Moses comes into play, gets them out of Egypt, and they are going to now be in Israel. So the Israelites are in Israel. But we have our second world empire, Assyria, come in. And they take the northern part of Israel, the Israelites, and they get dispersed. The southern part gets to stay. Eventually, the Babylon Empire comes in, and those who are in that the southern part of Israel, they are now dispersed as well. Eventually, we have the Medo-Persian Empire that comes. We have King Cyrus, and he makes a way for the Israelites to come back to Israel. So this is a good thing. They're back in their homeland. Well, eventually, the next empire to come is the Greek Empire. To my knowledge, they allowed the Israelites to stay in Israel. Then we have the Roman Empire. I think it would be really good for you to just go to Google Maps, or I use a search engine named Ecosia, and you get to plant trees every time you do a Google or an internet search. Anyways, do an internet search on the old Roman Empire, just so you can see the layout of the various nations the Roman Empire had. So the Roman Empire is now ruling and is in charge of Israel. And we have all these Israelites in Israel. Well, to my knowledge, around the time of 70 AD, we get the first time the Israelites are pushed out, or not the first time. I mean, they were really first pushed out by the Syrians and then a little bit with Babylon and whatnot. But in this day and age now, they've settled a little bit, and now they are told to go and leave. And so a good amount of them are going up to Europe. And then again in 135 AD, it sounds like there's like another round of the Israelites getting dispersed. And that's important. This 135 AD is important because Israel is now no longer known as Israel, but it's known as Syria Palestina. I might be pronouncing that wrong, okay? So already this Palestina, you're probably thinking, oh, Palestine. Okay, I can see where this is going. So the Israelites are up in Europe and other areas as well, okay? But I want to focus on Europe because eventually we're going to hit home on the Holocaust and all of that. So now we're going to fast forward. So back to that Roman Empire, okay? They were like in like Europe and Turkey, and then the western part of like the Middle East, and then a little bit north of Africa. So there's like this U thing going on. And so in AD 395, that Roman Empire splits into two sections. Okay, we got our western and our eastern. Eventually, the eastern falls, the eastern part of the Roman Empire falls, and then eventually the western. Oh, my bad, flip-flopped it. Sorry. The western part of the Roman Empire falls first, and then the eastern part of the Roman Empire falls. Well, with all that said, in the midst of all of this, in the 7th century, that would be between 601 and 700, this Syria, Palestina is starting to grow. So remember, this is technically Israel, okay? So Syria, Palestina, Israel is starting to get more Arabs in the area. This is also the time of the Islamic conquest. Okay, now we're going to fast forward to around the 1300s, all the way up into the 1900s. We're going to have a new empire arise. This is the Ottoman Empire. And now they are overtaking Israel, as well as very much of the old Roman Empire. If you look at the Ottoman Empire and the old Roman Empire, they look very similar. So this Ottoman Empire, its main religion is Muslim, just so you know, and they're ruling. Well, in 1914, we get the start of Britain seizing Israel. And so there's something called the Mandate for Palestine, okay? Mandate for Palestine. This is all birthed from Britain. Pretty much how I look at this is Britain has governmental control over Israel. So with that said, it's going to be important for us to know that. We're going to get to that in a little bit. So as I said, Ottoman Empire is ruling. Israel is growing with Arabs. It was once called Israel, to Syria, Palestina, to now just Palestina. It all makes sense. Palestina sounds like Palestine. Eventually it'll be called Palestine, but we'll get there in a second. So now it's 1933. Israel, Palestina has a lot of Arabs. Sounds like it's a lot of Muslims from my perspective. And the Jews, the Israelites, are like up in Europe and other areas too. Well, Hitler arises, okay? So around 1933, some of the Israelites are coming back into Israel, but not all of them by any means. I mean, if you study the Holocaust, you know. And so some of them are going back to Israel, but obviously World War II breaks out and we just have a horrific situation happen with the Jews. So many Jews died. Well, the war ends and the survived Jews, those who were in the Europe area originally but got dispersed to like prison camps, a lot of them can't get back to Europe. And so they're starting to now go to Israel. So you're getting a lot of Israelites into Israel. War ends around 1945, and just a couple of years later, that mandate over Palestine, remember Britain having governmental rule over it, it terminates. And they are going to state that Israel is now its own state. Big deal. All this time, Israel never got to be called Israel until 1948. And so now the Israelites, Israel, it's growing. But remember, who was all in that section of land prior? It was the Palestinians. But before the Palestinians, it was always supposed to be for Israel. And that was God's promise. So now you can see the conflict. The land was for Israel and is for Israel. They got dispersed. Palestinians came in, and then the Israelites come back into the country. And of course, you're gonna have conflict. And so you could go out to a map and just Google Israel right now, and you're going to see Israel, and then you're going to see there's a section called the Gaza Strip, and then you're going to see a section called the West Bank. That Gaza Strip is where the Palestinians live right now, and the West Bank is where the Palestinians live. All the other area, that's where the Israelites live. And so there's been conflict ever since, and you could do another internet search on that, and you could see all the conflicts even after 1948 that the Palestinians in Israel have had. So with all that said, we're going to go back to this seventh world empire, okay? So the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation is going to be talking about these 10 kings, okay? And so these 10 kings, I believe, is going to be a 10-nation confederation. And it's going to be in that exact area that was the old Roman Empire, that Ottoman area, to my knowledge. That's what I'm believing as of now. And these 10 nations are going to have eventually an evil leader named the Antichrist. And the Antichrist is going to be making a covenant. He's going to be making this, from my perspective, a peace treaty. So this peace treaty, what's it going to be all about? Is it going to be about land? Is it going to be about a temple getting built and animal sacrifices? Is it going to be something else? I can't help but to think of the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation, like, as I see this conflict arise in Israel with Palestine. I'm not saying the Antichrist is rising up right now, but I believe the birthing pains of the Antichrist rising has started. And I could see him making some type of covenant with peace with just the nations and with land. But this peace treaty is going to be false, you guys. It's not going to be of the Lord. So it's just something to think about and pray about. With all that said, Israel, we want to pray for Israel, and we want to pray for Palestine too. I mean, God loves, everyone. Of course, Israel is God's chosen nation, and that land does belong to Israel. It's just, I would go about it differently than firing rockets, but I guess I don't even know what to say about that, because, then I'll just be opening another whole can of worms. But we want to pray for Israel, and then of course Palestine. We want to pray for godly peace to come over them. We want Palestine to obviously surrender. We want Israel to have educated wisdom, godly wisdom on how to go about all of this. We want Israel to understand everything I just said. We want them to understand that there's going to be an Antichrist arising, and that this Antichrist arising will be an evil leader. See, a lot of the people in Israel, those who have like Judaism faith, they don't believe that. They don't believe in that Jesus has come, or if they do, they believe that he was like a false prophet. They're still waiting for like their Messiah. And so if this Antichrist rises up and is doing all the things that, the Bible says he's going to do, they could fall into this deception. So we want to pray that Israel is educated on Jesus, on the end times, on the New Testament. We want to pray salvation for Israel. All of Israel will eventually be saved. That's biblical. Anyways, all right, guys, there you go. 15 minutes of a little bit of the conflict with Israel and Palestine and the seven world empires. Hopefully some of that made sense. It's okay if you're like, what the heck? I mean, this took a lot of time for me to wrap my mind around, and I probably missed some points too, but that's okay. Grace on me. Bye, guys.